What's up, and welcome to another episode of the Grindline Podcast, listening to episode 266. I am your host, Greg, with COVID. I am here tonight with Ryan and Tyler, and it has been a day. There has been a lot going on in the NHL. No one got the memo that the deadline was the 8th. Everything started today, and it's just been a massive amount of emotions coming from across the league, from some very underwhelming returns to some very overwhelming returns. And the Red Wings have had none of it. But how are you guys doing tonight?
Anxiously awaiting that 3 a.m. trade to drop as we're all sleeping happily in our beds because I feel like that's what's going to happen. But outside of that, I'm anxious. But
It'll be
I'm
in the middle of me editing the episode. That's what's going to happen.
probably
It'll
just
be in
like
the middle of the episode.
or that. Actually,
Well,
that'd
that's
be best
fine.
case scenario.
Yeah, we can react to it in the middle of the episode.
Yeah,
It's hard to do it after the fact when I was like append the episode.
really upset or really happy, depending on how you want to look at it.
I'm doing fantastic. Awaiting the Iser bomb. But we'll see what happens. I mean, I'm cautiously optimistic. I think they'll do something just to do something for the morale of the team, but I don't think they're going to do anything astronomical. But there's always that hope.
I don't know if I hope that something astronomical happens. I hope that a couple level-headed trades happen. That's my hope.
I'm not even convinced that may happen this season. Something I just mentioned a little bit ago is that while there's people we want, and I don't want to get in like some of the ones are really the one of the big ones that we would have liked to have seen in Detroit that we'll talk about here in a second is gone. And we don't even know the return yet. But part of me leading into this point has been I don't really see Eiserman doing a whole lot. I'd be happy if he improves the defense, especially because we already know that this team offensively can do what they got to do, and they got the depth to do it in terms of putting the puck in the net. Is it to the point where, and Eiserman kind of even said this before, that he doesn't see them at that level? This could have changed. This is just a long time ago of trading first round picks to make that big impact on this team going into a playoff run. And they're still kind of on the fringe. Teams below them are doing well. So I don't know.
Would you give up a first round pick for Pavel Buchnevich?
We're going to talk about that. We're going to stop you right there and we're going to talk about that probably in the second half of the episode. But I want to start the episode by saying that as of 2 days ago, we did launch an exclusive collaboration with the Vintage Detroit Collection. Ryan's wearing the shirt. So if you're watching us on YouTube, that's one of them. There are 4 shirts. You can go to vintagedetroit.com. There is a tab called Keep It Local. If you hover over that tab, you will see the Grindline podcast. Our shirts are up there. You can buy them. They ship internationally. They ship throughout the United States. The shirts I think are cool. I made them, so I think they're cool. But they've been the
That's
designs
some good help
themselves
from
have
the
been,
Discord on these too.
yeah, they've been well received by people. The designs we did, yeah, a little bit of collaboration with our people on Discord, so you can join the Discord too. If you look at our link tree, our Discord link is in there. But Ryan is wearing the Patrick Kane Showtime shirt.
Dude,
I think
it's
that's one of the
comfy.
better ones. And
I
his
was
comfort, yeah.
very pleasantly surprised to go. I picked up a jersey today, first of all. So they sucked me dry of some jersey money.
Don't
When I was
say it
there,
like that.
they printed me off a t-shirt. Picked it up, and it is light. It is soft. It's not cotton, so it's not really going to shrink. And I was talking to Brian, and he said he has several of their shirts that he's washed a lot. I think he said 200 times for one of his shirts, and it hasn't faded. So we're not getting it's not Fanatics quality. We got some good shit here.
Yeah, it doesn't fall off in a light sprinkle. But yeah, Vintage Detroit Collection, go to vintagedetroit.com to check that stuff out. The other thing that I wanted to make people aware of is as of the 8th of March, this shirt that I am wearing, which is the Jake Wallman Gritty shirt, which is designed by Kiwi Clo. They sent me this one. So if you go to kiwiclo.com on the 8th, you will be able to get some of the merch that they have designed specifically for Jake Wallman, for the Vladimir Konstantinov Special Needs Trust and the Boys and Girls Club of Detroit. So proceeds from those sales will be going to those places. And I guess Jake Wallman is also not done doing stuff like this. He's kind of invested himself in the community like the community has invested themselves in him. He's giving back. So this is just one of them. This is the Jake Wallman shirt with the gritty. There's a Russian 5 shirt with Vladdy on it. There's some hats. There's some hoodies. It's some really cool stuff. So that will launch on the 8th at kiwiclo.com. That is KIWICLO.com. Those are the two big announcements that I'm going to do off the top. Anything else that I need to clear the air with?
They're doing something big with at one of the upcoming games with that too, right?
Oh no, there is another clothing one coming up. I don't know who it is. Daniela was wearing a shirt, hoodie from them or sweater from them or something. So Red Wings are doing a ton of clothing stuff.
Let's find that one because that one looked. Those are pretty sharp shirts too.
I think unfortunately for us, with Fanatics taking over a lot of things, I think Rally House and a lot of these other smaller things, obviously Rally House is a little bit bigger, but some of these smaller Vintage Detroit and Santa and all these other companies are going to get the rights to the Red Wings logo and just make shit like this. I mean, if you go into Rally House, they have starter stuff. You can't buy starter stuff with the Red Wings logo at Fanatics or on Fanatics or anything like that. The only place you can get that is at a specific Rally House. So hopefully this is kind of where it heads, and it's unfortunate that it won't be online, but at least you'll be able to get your hands on some Red Wings stuff that's not Fanatics bullshit.
I was going to say some other random places. I mean, the team store specifically has items you can't find online. Like they've got New Era Red Wings hats, which are very difficult to find. And they've got other name brand. There's Carhartt in there, but like if you're looking outside of that, I know with Vintage, like to your point, they don't have that agreement in place as of right now. I think that might be a long-term thing that they may look at, but that's just me purely speculating because it would be awesome. Because now that I see how comfortable these shirts are, I would love to have more Red Wings type stuff from that. But it'd be nice. Yeah, I'll have to go check out Rally House again because last time I was in there, I just grabbed a Lions sweatshirt, but it was Nike because they actually have decent sweatshirts that I'll pay for. But the pickings are slim, especially when it comes to hockey. I wish Under Armour would get freaking involved.
Yeah, I think you're going to see a lot more individual people make stuff. And if the NHL gets a little bit more freewheeling with their licensing, you'll see a lot more different kinds of products as well. And I think that that is something that a lot of corporations and especially major league sporting people should do is let individual people license out their logo for use.
Weird, kind of like it used to be.
No, we saw how tricky that can get though during the NFL playoffs because folks that were doing that now, who knows how legit some of their products were, but they were trying to sell Lions licensed gear and
Oh,
got
yeah.
arrested
Well,
and
there's
fined and other things.
it's much easier to keep tabs on it and do quality control now than it was before. But you could see, I mean, you could just have them listed in one spot and it would be up for review. But we got a lot of stuff to talk about tonight. And I think we're going to start with the standings before we get into trade stuff. Right now, the Detroit Red Wings sit fourth in the Atlantic Division, 61 games played, 33 wins, 22 losses at 72 points, dropping their last two games in a row, a 4-0 loss to the Panthers and a 5-3 loss to the Islanders. Behind them at 63 games played and 72 points is the Tampa Bay Lightning. But what we really got to watch out for is the New York Islanders, who are now at the same games played as us, but are at 68 points. So they are 4 points behind the Red Wings at the same amount of games played. And the Flyers are at 72 points with 63 games played. So those are the two teams that you got to kind of keep tabs on going forward because they're going to be the ones that are going to try and gun for your spot. It's all about winning going forward. I know we said you could win two, lose one, win two, lose one, but with the Dylan Larkin injury announcement, that makes it a lot more harder. The outlook is a little more bleak when Dylan Larkin could miss up to 2 weeks of time with an undisclosed lower body injury.
Yeah, but I think of all the times it possibly could have happened, this may have been the best one because,
Well, after this Colorado game would have been better, I think.
well, that's fair. But to that same point, I mean, yes, you have Colorado tonight. And then, but this weekend, you look at trade deadline day, you've got Arizona. This one is a toss up going into Saturday with Vegas because they have been a roller coaster of emotion and also, doing their LTIR thing. So who knows what's going to
Ryan,
happen
did you
there?
just go Boston? You said rolling into Saturday.
Did I? Well,
We did.
sometimes Tyler rubs off on you.
I don't
Uh,
have that accent.
you don't? You
My
want to talk?
No,
father
you
has
most
that- my
certainly
father
do.
has that accent.
You do.
You slip
cannot
into it
say
sometimes,
that you
Tyler.
do not have a Boston accent, especially when I hear you talking to your buddies.
Oh well, maybe.
Oh,
It's when he gets
yeah.
into it. He gets it. He ties one on and he gets into that Boston accent. A couple beers in him, slips right into that Boston
Yeah,
accent.
you can't hide from it. Don't try to act like you're a Midwesterner. You're not. We see through you.
I think my accent is very neutral altogether, to be honest. But
You are fighting it so hard right now.
For the rest of this episode, Tyler is only going to talk like this. He is not going to give away his
monotone.
accent.
His voice got lower. He's like, I can't do that. I don't know what you're talking about. He's doing. It's like if a British person was trying to mock the American accent and do their thing. That's kind of what it sounds like at this point.
Yeah, but the Dylan Larkin loss, I think, and you're right. So our strength of schedule is pretty easy. And if you go, I haven't checked Tankathon lately, but last I checked, I think we had the second easiest strength of schedule in the division.
Correct.
And but you never want to lose your 1C. That's the problem. Like, and I thought that, hey, maybe they would just shift JT Compher up. JT Compher's been great at 2C, and it looks like they're putting Joe Veleno at that 1C spot. And that's a choice, I guess. I might have gone a little differently with that, but maybe the thought there is that since Alex DeBrincat and Patrick Kane are such high-level players, that if you put a Joe Veleno in there, it's not going to do maybe as much damage. And I say do as much damage, but I mean have as big of an impact as where you take out JT Compher, who's also been playing at a high level, and put Joe Veleno with whoever you're going to put on the, what's it going to be, Michael Rasmussen and Lucas Raymond, or David Perron and Lucas Raymond. I think that it gives you, it lessens the impact if you put Veleno there than if you put Veleno on top with Kane and DeBrincat.
It scares me. I'm not gonna lie. I've gone back and forth on if I'm pumped up for some Joey Poison on the top line, or if I'm
He's
absolutely
been
like,
doing well.
yeah. It just seems like some of the time, and this is just for me watching, he's not up to that level, and obviously with Kane and Cat. Like the moves that they're making, he is just a split second off. I mean, yes, a lot of that would come with, playing on a line with them. So we could see that transition. We know that Volano can handle it. He's shown it before. And I think that really outside of tonight and maybe against Vegas, he's got a chance to show that off. Like you've got Buffalo twice, Arizona twice, and then you got a game that's going to be a hell of a matchup with Pittsburgh, which could be the tail end of right before Larkin returns. So he's playing for a contract. There's a lot really riding on the line here for Veleno. Wouldn't you think?
Yeah, I think that, and you're right, playing for a contract because you've got guys behind him in Nate Danielson. You've got guys behind him in Marco Kasper, who are centers in the system that want to come up. And that, I think, is the only reason he got that 1-year deal at the value that he did, because Yzerman knows what's behind him. And it's more of a maybe put some pressure on him and see if he overperforms to earn a bigger contract that can stick, or he's got a cheap enough contract that he could be moved by the end of the week. If you needed to move him by Friday's deadline, you could move Joe Veleno to give another team some center depth. If you know that one of either Kasper or Danielson is ready to come up and take that spot. And to your point about playing a long stretch without Larkin, the games we've got are the Avs, Coyotes, Golden Knights, Sabres, Coyotes again, and Sabres again, maybe the Penguins. They said he might miss 6 games. That would bring him back for the Penguins game, but if he misses the Penguins game, the next game's against the Blue Jackets. So this is kind of, besides tonight in an hour, puck drops at 9:30, this should hopefully, and then maybe Golden Knights, be a cakewalk for Joe Veleno. These are the kind of games where you get him in and it should build some confidence, and he should show out in that role because he's playing with 2 very high level players. So if he plays with Kane and DeBrincat and just falls flat, then maybe you look to move him because you know there are going to be other guys that are able to take his space. You've got other centers on the roster. Michael Rasmussen can play center. Andrew Kopp's not playing center right now. So,
I mean, even Detroit's been linked to some of these free agent depth center pieces. So it could I mean, to your point, that doesn't play into what you just mentioned, but because with the deadline being 2 days away, that changes things absolutely. But I, when you see Rasmussen get his deal already, it makes you wonder what's the deal with Joey.
I agree. And the one thing I'll say too, is if it doesn't go well against McKinnon tonight, I could see him shifted back down to the third or even the fourth line. I'm not saying that one game should define your whole situation, but when you're in a playoff push like this, you can't have a rough game and then expect to be on the same line going forward in the same continuity. I think personally too, you could see the Compher line play against the McKinnon line, and that could just be it is what it is. Like, who knows if the McKinnon line even starts, opening, you know, for the opening face-off in the game. So you really don't know what's going to happen. Whether Veleno's line is going to match up against that McKinnon line, or if it will be Compher, or if it will be Rasmussen. You really don't know until the puck drops. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I think Veleno, outside of this game and maybe the Vegas game, I think he should be fine against Arizona, Buffalo twice, Arizona twice, and then Pittsburgh. So, and correction, Arizona twice, Buffalo twice, and then Pittsburgh. And then, obviously Larkin should be back by then. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I have faith in Veleno. He's played a little bit better as of late, and this is a hell of an opportunity for him, honestly.
I think what's big to me is, can he do what we saw in the past with a Darren Helm? Can he do what we saw going way back, like a Chris Draper? He knows that he's got a role. He's a depth forward to a T. But can he make that impact when forced into a role to make that jump up the lineup? If he can do that, you're locking in that short-term deal or what have you, kind of like a Rasmussen. If you can't, especially against some of this lower competition, against a team that's struggling like Arizona, a teeter-totter team with Buffalo, and a one-dimensional team in Pittsburgh, then that's where you can start asking questions. But I don't think tonight really seals the deal one way or the other, because we've already seen what Detroit can do against this team. Yes, it helped that Larkin was there when they won that overtime game at home, because he had the game tying goal to force that thing to go into overtime. So am I expecting that from Veleno tonight? No, but make the plays you need to make. I think that's going to be important.
I would say tonight is absolutely not a measuring stick for Joe
No.
Veleno. It's like, to be like, oh, Larkin's down, go have fun with McKinnon. That's kind of like a shit show to be thrown into.
Yeah, it's going to be tricky too, because they're in Colorado, so they own the matchups. So unless you're going to see Lalone going straight up crazy with it and trying to be wizard like as soon as Colorado throws somebody out there, I think he's just going to let it play its course and see what happens, and then just own the matchups. Use your depth. Now Colorado's got their own depth, which is terrifying, and
And they just added a ton more.
And they just got even better, which blows my mind. But they have to with Vegas. So I don't know. It should be a fun game, I hope. I'd probably last.
The good thing is their 2C is Ross Colton. Like, that's
Casey Middlestat.
Not tonight. It's not.
Doesn't matter. It's got to be.
I'm just saying tonight, specifically for this matchup, Ross Colton is not exactly, what Casey Middlestat would be, or what a 2C typically is in the NHL. I'm not saying Colton's a bad player, but he's probably playing, he should be a third line center. He's playing second line center. So obviously McKinnon can do a lot of it on his own in the first place, and then you have enough to worry about with Makar, and if God forbid you take a penalty, good luck. So yeah, I mean, they have their work cut out for them, but it should be an interesting game. I'm looking forward to it.
Out of the next 6 games, like we mentioned, it's Colorado tonight, Arizona, Vegas, Buffalo, Arizona, Buffalo. Out of those 12 points, how many are you comfortable with giving up? What do you want to come out of this 6 games with?
I think you need to come out with at least 8.
8, 9.
And I'm not guaranteeing one way or the other, because the fact that they are playing both Buffalo and Arizona twice, I think it makes it that much more difficult to win two against them. On the same hand, like I mentioned, Vegas has been struggling. Their goaltending is suspect. They just had Alec Martinez go down on IR. Now, granted, they're probably going to have some of the trades they just made ready to go by Saturday.
Yep.
Um, there's a couple games there that they need to win. And with the way that the teams right on their heels are playing, I think 8 out of 12 points. And I really think you need at least a minimum of 4 to 5 points really on this 4-game road trip.
Yeah, I think you need to take a game you're not supposed to win. So either against Colorado and now against Vegas. And you are probably going to lose a game you shouldn't lose. So one of the Buffalo games or one of the Arizona games. But if you can come out with 8 points, that's solid. And then you got to hope that the teams around you keep doing what they're doing, because Tampa will lose a couple and win one. Islanders will like lose 3 and win one. So the teams that are around you, even though it looks like a tight race, and it is a tight race for all intents and purposes, are not doing very well. And so far, this trade deadline have done nothing to improve. That's the big thing. Now, again, trade deadline is Wednesday. I'm going to have to do a 5-minute major in order to kind of wrap everything up at the end of the week, but they haven't done anything to kind of improve their team. But the teams that you're coming up against in Colorado, thank God that the players aren't going to be there by now. But Vegas, the players that they pick up, and we'll talk about it after break, they are going to be there. And that's going to make it a much tougher game.
Yeah, and one of them is going to be very motivated come Saturday.
So what I think we're going to do before we get into this trade talk, because we can't really go any further talking about the matchups coming up without talking about what has happened with the team. So we're going to take a quick break for a word from DraftKings before we come back and talk about the absolute insanity that has happened so far on the 6th of March on a Wednesday that is not called trade deadline day. And then we are going to kind of break down what options are left for the Red Wings going forward, or what options we might just want to stay away from. But give us 1 second. We'll be back after a word from DraftKings. We know hockey games move fast, but with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL, you can score faster than anything happening on the ice. This week, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. And right now, we might be taking the Red Wings to lock up that second wild card position in the East. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app with code THPN. New customers bet just $5 on the NHL and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code THPN. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPENY or text HOPENY 467369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-878-9777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See dkng.com/hockey for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources. NHL and the NHL Shield are registered trademarks of the National Hockey League. Copyright NHL 2024. All rights reserved. And we're back. And like I said, it has been a busy day. And we're going to go through the trades that have happened literally just today. And there's a pretty long list. Actually, no, yesterday and then today. And it started out with Anthony Mantha being sent from the Washington Capitals to the Vegas Golden Knights for a 2nd-round pick in 2024, a 4th-round pick in 2026, and Washington retained half of Mantha's salary. This is one of the trades, and as much as people still dog Anthony Mantha, I had said on Twitter, Anthony Mantha is to, or was to Washington, basically what Daniel Sprong is to us, is to Detroit. He's playing a bottom 6 role. He's playing about 14 minutes a night, but he is racking up points and he's playing very good defensively. That is the thing. He's playing very good defensive hockey. So he is kind of like their version of Daniel Sprong. He's a dude that you can put out there against maybe mismatches and lower lines, and he's going to go sometimes make a fool out of them while playing responsibly. And I think that return, as much as people were saying that it was a huge overpay by Vegas, I'm not sure it was that big of an overpay because Washington retained salary on it. I think that if Vegas would have taken the full contract, it probably would have been a lower return. But I'm not sure it was as bad as people are making it out to be, and it's going to make it harder to play against.
He is a goal scorer. And on a roster like Vegas, he has the chance to thrive. I think we thought that was going to kind of be the case with the way Washington was set up when he went there, because at the time we thought we were getting a banger of a deal by getting Jake Vrana. Mantha gets a fresh start. you have two guys that can go out and put the puck in the net and own it. And neither of those things happened. So I think with him going there, I just was reading an article here a few minutes ago. He's excited that he is going to a top team in the league again. And yeah, it's one thing because you're leaving arguably one of the greatest goal scorers of all time, but now you go to one of the best overall teams in hockey. To me, as a Wings fan, having to see this come Saturday is a little bit intimidating because they are adding like crazy.
Yeah, he's a big body too. He's a big body that doesn't hit people, but he does in 56 games have 20 goals and 14 assists for 34 points. So it's depth. They're playing the depth game. When we had said that Yzerman is trying to build the Red Wings like the Vegas Golden Knights, these are moves that they make. These are
Yeah.
moves, like I said, that Yzerman made to get that kind of depth, to put scoring throughout the lineup so that you've got guys, you've got mismatches everywhere, which is why, like, yeah, the Red Wings might not right now have a 70-point guy, but they have dudes up and down the lineup who all have 10 goals plus. So it's adding to that for Vegas, doing the same thing. Maybe you don't have that. You lost Mark Stone. So you lost, well, you air quotes, lost Mark Stone, who will rise like Jesus did on day one of the playoffs. But you're adding goal scoring back in Anthony Mantha to kind of prop that back up, who you will play lower in the lineup. So it's a super smart move for Vegas.
Yeah. I mean, you're without Mark Stone. Like I just mentioned a little bit ago, they have Brett Howden on IR. Yet Alec Martinez, who just went on to IR today. William Carrier is on IR, and the person who I don't know is on IR. So, but you look at their roster, they just got Jack Eichel back. They're still out there with Alex Petrangelo and Shea Theodore, and you got Braden McNabb. And now you add, I don't want to steal your thunder, another top tier defenseman to this list. And you're just like, ha, what? Like the rest of the league has to just throw their hands up at this point, thinking, what is happening?
They're the defending Stanley Cup champs, and they're trying to defend, what they earned last year. And there's no reason why they can't do that. They see Vancouver getting better, they see teams around them getting better, and they're like, well, we need to go do something. And so they trade for Anthony Mantha, who is a goal scorer. He's played pretty good this year, and I'll tell you what, when Mark Stone comes back and some of their players come back into that lineup, and Anthony Mantha is your third line winger putting up points in the Stanley Cup playoffs, I think a lot of people are going to be excited about that. And Anthony Mantha, as you alluded to earlier in the podcast, has a lot of motivation, especially playing against the Red Wings, a team that traded him. I know I saw a lot of people talking about Anthony Mantha potentially coming back to Detroit, and I'm like, Steve Yzerman traded him away. What makes you think he wants him back here? Maybe if it was a different regime, I could see the fit potentially, but it's the same regime, and Yzerman traded him away. They're not bringing him back. So I never understood that. But yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens with Vegas, acquiring Mantha and how he fits with the Golden Knights.
Brian alluded to as well, they also acquired, and we don't know the return yet, but they acquired Noah Hanifin. And that was a defenseman that we had kind of looked at as a top pairing partner for Mo Sider, maybe able to give Mo a little bit easier matchups every night. And they go out and they grab him too. All I know so far is that there is another defenseman going back the other way that I have never heard of. But Noah Hanifin is a left shot D. He's 6'3", 207 pounds. So that gives him a big body to help on the blue line. And in 61 games played this season, he has 11 goals and 24 assists for 35 points. And he's defensively sound. If you look at his JFresh WAR card, he's got a 69 offense. Nice. A 40 defense, a projected WAR of 67. But his competition is high level competition. He's good on the penalty kill. He scores goals. He gets assists. He's the all-around defenseman where if you had someone like him, you could slot Jake Wallman down a pair and play him with someone like Ben Sherratt and immediately improve your top four uh, in the defense. And I'm kind of pissed because Vegas plays cap games and everyone would be like, well, they're just using the CBA to their advantage. But I don't think that's it. It's more like guys get hurt right before trade deadline. They make some big trades. And then when cap and roster size doesn't matter, those guys are magically okay to play hockey again. And it's eventually teams are going to get pissed off enough to do something about it, write it into the CBA that that's not what's going to happen. But it makes them a much better team. So when you add depth scoring in Anthony Mantha and you add big body, really stout defense in Noah Hanifin, this game that's coming up, we thought, hey, maybe they've been slacking a little bit. It might be an easier game. It looks a lot harder.
Yeah, I think what plays into their favor a little bit, and they're just smart with the way they're quote unquote abusing it. And yes, Stone went on it. Doesn't he have a lacerated spleen?
Yeah, I don't even know how you get that. Well, I think we talked about that. You like get hit hard enough and it like, you go, oh, my spleen. It's like the organ that everyone says when someone's like, what'd you hurt? They're like, I think it's my spleen, and no one even knows what a spleen is. That's
Yeah.
what Mark Stone hurt.
So, but I mean, to go on LTIR, that's where the league gets involved with their medical decisions, and they have to actually review and approve, from what I understand. IR, you can throw a guy on there and do what you got to do. It gives you room to make a move, but I think it's internally. It doesn't give you cap space per se, like an LTIR move does. So with Alec Martinez, yeah, you have 5.25 million locked up in IR, from what I understand. And text messages I had today, it's just a small possible foot fracture that he is handling. So I don't see him going on LTIR. If they do that in the next 24 hours, I'd be freaking amazed. But apparently he expects to be back within the next week. So their big relief, though, that I think we all forget about is they still have Robin Leonard on the books. It's an extra $5 million in their LTIR. So that's kind of where they're given a little bit of a boost, whether we like it or not. And good for them, that fact that he is still getting money because of his situation. It sucks because I like what Pete Blackburn said. Let me find the tweet real quick. But
Was it the
basically
tweet about the
along-
meteor?
Yeah. Hold on. I got this. This one was fantastic. Quote, the Vegas Golden Knights consistently operate like there is a massive meteor hurtling toward the earth. Good player available, might as well trade for him because we're all going to be dead in a couple months anyways. And that sums up Vegas perfect. It's to a T. And then you look at the rest of the league and you're just like, oh man, what do you come on, do something.
Yeah, but just wait until like 5 years from now when they're at the bottom of the National Hockey League and everyone's like, well, you probably shouldn't have done that. You know, I mean, it worked out. They won a Stanley Cup. They could win a second here. But, you know, at some point you start to have to pay the piper for that. And
For what? They have no guys under contract out that far.
They also have a garbage prospect pool.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
you know the cap's going to go up. You know that there's going to be a handful of these guys that they are going to re-sign. Like Jack Eichel is up after 2 years after this. He's 27. His contract goes to 30. So you think there's a contract coming there. Yeah, Nicholas Roy, I should say. He's 27. His contract goes for 4 more years. So there's some younger players that they have that they're absolutely going to be holding on to long term. But they are getting older. And I think at this point, though, why not? We saw it with Detroit. We're seeing it currently with Pittsburgh. Like, you ride it out. You go for those cups and then you try to rebuild it.
I like the way Tampa did it. If they didn't
And Tampa.
if they didn't re-sign Sergachev and they didn't re-sign what was it? Sergachev and Point, I think they'd still be in a good cap situation if it wasn't for that. I think it was 3 contracts in a row that they signed that you're looking at now like, oh my God, Jesus Christ. But, you know, they weren't able to bring Palat back. They weren't able to bring Killorn back. Anyways, we're getting off on a tangent. But I like the way Tampa built it, honestly.
Vegas is built to win now. That's what they're built to do. They're not building for long term like Yzerman is doing. Yzerman's building a sustained success. Vegas is building just to win because it's Vegas. They're building a product. They're not really building a sustainable team. They're just building to win. And we're going to run through some of the other trades that happened. We're going to laugh at one. We're going to admire some other. Actually, we're going to laugh at a couple. And so the Florida Panthers, we're not going to expand too much on these because I want to kind of get to who's left for us before we have to wrap the episode. The Florida Panthers acquire Vladimir Tarasenko from the Ottawa Senators for a conditional 4th in 2024, a 3rd in 2025, and Ottawa retains 50% salary. The entire Ottawa Senators fan base was like, we're absolutely getting a first round pick for Tarasenko after the Mantha trade. And they didn't. And they explained that it had to do a lot with Tarasenko having control over the process, much like DeBrincat did, because he had a no trade clause and his family's in Florida. So he goes to Florida for, I say, an underwhelming return, because you can say, well, the situation, all you want. That doesn't make the return they got any less underwhelming. And we all threw our heads back and we laughed because it's Ottawa and it's the most unparalleled success that we've ever seen, even though they actually have to like completely rebuild their team again without ever doing anything.
It's poetry. It's modern day poetry at this point, because they have the most insufferable fan base. Now watching your team continue to suffer and trade off some of your top players while you get middling picks just brings a bright, shining light over my day. And it was kind of gloomy out, which made it even better.
Like Marie Kondo would say, it sparks joy. The Senators' suffering sparks joy within me. And I think you'd say that the Florida Panthers won that trade.
Oh, yes. Totally. I mean, they didn't really give up anything. And the fact that you get Ottawa to retain, yes, it's an expiring deal, but you got Ottawa to retain salary. And it sucks, because when you look at the core that Ottawa has, like they're going to be good. But then you're kind of like, well, will they be? Because you look at Buffalo and it's the same situation.
Yeah. A couple people does not make a hockey team.
No. But
Buffalo has been doing this since 2010,
right.
It feels like.
It's like Ottawa learned nothing from them.
Really, I think it was 2006 where in a row they went to the Eastern Conference Finals and lost. But anyways, yeah, Tarasenko going to the Florida Panthers, obviously win for the Florida Panthers. Ottawa, man. Like, you just think that they're always building towards something, and it's just the same thing over and over again. You know, Spezza traded, Heatley traded, back in those days.
Like, you're going way back.
More recently, you had
Alfie traded,
and
Alfredson fallout.
Alfredson fallout. They've made a mockery of that organization. And you know what? When's the day that Tim Stützle says, you know what, I want out of here? When's the day that Brady Tkachuk goes, yeah, you know what, I like Ottawa, but I don't love this place. So I'm not saying we're close to those days or anything like that. They're probably closer to being a good hockey team than a bad hockey team. But man, did that make my day when I saw Tarasenko getting traded to the Florida Panthers and the Senators punting on yet another hockey season where there won't be a hockey in the spring in Canada, Ontario.
Maybe Tim Stützle will dive his way to Detroit some season. Next, we have the Edmonton Oilers acquiring Adam Henrique and Sam Carrick with a 7th round pick and rights to reserve goaltender Ty Taylor from the Anaheim Ducks, who get a 1st round pick in 2024, conditional 5th in 2025. They retain 50% of Henrique's contract, 50% of Carrick's contract, and Edmonton has to give Tampa a conditional 4th to retain 25% more of the salary. And this is just, again, we're going to sum this up pretty quickly. This is Ken Holland doing Ken Holland things. There was absolutely no reason to send a 1st round pick for Adam Henrique to the Anaheim Ducks. It's Ken Holland overpaying to try to get his team a cup. Now, granted, he has a very good team. Those are two guys that are not going to win it for him. I mean, Adam Henrique is a good player. I've never heard of Sam Carrick, but you gave up 1, 2, 3 picks for Adam Henrique and a throwaway guy. I mean, it's mind-boggling to me that they allow Ken Holland to keep doing stuff like this.
That's why you're going to look at the Oilers in 3 or 4 years and you're going to be like, oh man, this team sucks. And it's Connor McDavid and maybe Leon Draisaitl. And what happened? Where are all the draft picks? Where are all the prospects? And it's just like, yeah, everybody got traded. So it's Zach Hyman and
Evan
Connor
Bouchard.
McDavid, and that's it. And Evan Bouchard, and that's it. But I'm not. I mean, I'm not here to dump on the Oilers. Like, I think the Oilers are a really good team. Is this a move that puts them over the top? No. But does it put them closer to being one of the best teams in the Western Conference? Absolutely. I think they're definitely a better hockey team. I mean, last year, like, just watch the Oilers game from last night playing against the Bruins, where it was a 1-0 Boston lead late in the third period, and they really played a 0-0 game until I think it was the 5-minute mark in the third period, where it was 1-0 Boston, and then they still come back and win the game. That just shows you Edmonton is really kind of bought into less of the fire wagon hockey and more of the, we're going to play structured defensively and we're going to beat you 2-1 to 3-2, and they've gotten better at that.
Yeah, and go figure, Draisaitl and McDavid accounted on both the tying goal and the winning goal. So
Weird.
problem is still they're relying on them to put the puck in the net. And I think that their hope with a guy, Carrick is whatever. He's just there to be a two-way guy, shut down defensive forward. Adam Henrique, you're hoping that he can turn into a depth center for you or middle six center and actually give you some type of depth scoring touch and or offense because they're going to need it. And yes, they struggled early. They've catapulted themselves up into the second spot in the Pacific. Vegas, with their recent struggles, and really a lot of it started right about the time Aiden Hill went down with his injury. And his return, he has not been the same. My fantasy team has also not been happy about that. But
Ryan says, my fantasy points are proof.
yeah. But then you also look at the Mark Stone injury and just the way and I mentioned earlier how many injuries they've got in general right now with guys on IR. They are in a tough spot. And really, Vegas is number one in the wild card. LA just jumped back up into the third spot in the Pacific Division. So, in a way, you could look at the trades that Vegas made as a desperation move to maintain their standing. Because if you're the defending Stanley Cup champions and now you're scratching to get in, it's kind of a rough look. And you know that they're not going to really stand for anything less than a playoff appearance. So, because I do think if they get back in, which St. Louis is trying, and with Seattle, they're both 6 points back, but Nashville's on a bender. Vegas is doing just enough. Edmonton and Vegas in the playoffs still scare me.
Calgary just punted, basically.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So we got a couple picks that are ones that are going to affect us. No, these ones are not going to affect us because it's Colorado and the players are not going to be there tonight. But Colorado got more dangerous acquiring Sean Walker and a 5th-round pick from the Philadelphia Flyers for the corpse of Ryan Johansson and a 1st-round pick in 2025. Ryan Johansson was immediately waived by the Philadelphia Flyers. That's a $4 million contract that Colorado needed to get out of. He's had health issues for a long time now.
And apparently, Ryjo had some locker room issues in Colorado as well.
I could see it. I mean, he came from Nashville, right? Trashville?
Well, he had the same issues in Columbus, and he had the same issues in Nashville. So maybe
almost seems like it's a personal issue.
Crazy.
I feel like he might be kind of a fucking dick to deal with in the locker room.
I hated him so much when I was down in Columbus watching him play hockey. You knew immediately if the other team had the puck and he was on the ice, it was going to be a fucking 5-on-4. He is such a lazy fucking player.
And that's how Ryan really feels about that. The Colorado Avalanche.
I used to yell, fuck you, Johansson, so many times during Blue Jackets games back in the day. That lazy piece of shit.
The Colorado Avalanche also acquired Casey Middlestat from the Buffalo Sabres for Bowen Byram. And the trade was, Ryan? What was it?
1-for-1.
1-for-1. We have a Bob McKenzie hockey trade before trade deadline, but is Casey Middlestat for Bowen Byram 1-for-1. And that's a trade that honestly, people are like, what? That's it? That's a good trade. I mean, that gives Colorado, like Tyler was saying, that gives Colorado a second line piece like that is not Ross Colton. And that gives Buffalo a solid, very, very solid young defenseman to add to their already stacked defensive core. Now, granted, they are all really left shot. They can play both sides of the ice, but then you're having offhand matchups. But you've got 3 young lefties in Bowen Byram, Owen Power, and Rasmus Dahlin. So again, for a team, though, like Buffalo, whose forwards don't play much defense, They have a really good defensive core, and it's just it's gonna boost them. Sean Walker ups their defense. You get rid of a good defenseman in Byram, you bring in a good defenseman in Sean Walker, who's going to add grit to their team and just add toughness to that blue line.
Yeah, I think that was a sneaky good trade day for them. And I think Walker was a guy that some Wings fans had been looking at as well because his name got brought up. Him and Nick Sealer out in Philly.
Yeah, who signed a
And
4-year contract today?
so those options obviously are completely off the table. But I like the middle stat trade a lot. And I think what I kind of focused on there with Colorado is that you don't know when it's going to happen, but you still got Gabe Landeskog out there that is working his way towards a comeback. And hey, fun fact, now you can slot Middlestat down to your third line and you're not going to lose anything from it. While he can still give you power play time, you could even slot him up on your second line wing if you really wanted to. It's the options become very endless, if you will, once Landeskog finally does return, if he does return.
If he does return, because
yeah.
that's a bad injury that seldom people come back even at or never at 100%,
Yeah.
and sometimes don't.
You
come
hope
back
he
at all.
does because
Yeah,
he is
we hope he
fun
does.
to watch. But no, I like the moves they made. They really solidified their depth, and honestly, they're already a scary team. But hey, at least we don't have to worry about Byram tonight.
I just remember, World Juniors in Buffalo a couple years ago. Everyone said Casey Middlestat's going to be this number 2C behind Jack Eichel in Buffalo, and this is what it's going to be, and they're going to be tough in the Atlantic Division. And here we are on March 6, 2024, and Casey Middlestat is a member of the Colorado Avalanche. And honestly, at the end of the day, I don't hate this deal for either of the teams. I think it's kind of a win-win for both teams. Colorado gets what they need, and Bowen Byram. I mean, I think Buffalo would have preferred that to be a forward, but Bowen Byram's a hell of a player. But either way, I think it's a good hockey trade for once we actually seen a hockey trade 1-for-1 that actually makes sense for both teams.
Yeah, I think the big thing with Middlestat is that yes, he's a little bit older than Byram, and but what you look at is he's on an expiring deal and it's arbitration eligible. So it could get interesting depending on how the season closes out and how he feels he fits into the group. But I think long term, with the Landeskog question mark, that could end up being a very sneaky good deal.
The last trade we have to talk about is the New York Rangers sending a second-round pick in 2024, a conditional fourth in 2025, and Seattle retaining 50% of Alex Wenberg's salary. Alex Wenberg goes back to the New York Rangers. This is a move for me. Alex Wenberg is a decent is undercutting it. He's a good center, and it improves the depth of the New York Rangers. But other than that, it's not a huge move for me. This is one where you went, okay, where's the bigger trades? And then like the Casey Middlestat stuff happened, and you immediately forgot that Alex Wenberg went to the New York Rangers.
Yeah, I like this one, and we were kind of touching on it earlier. It solidifies their depth, and we know already what the Rangers can do to you defensively. And now he has just added to that because he's a great two-way forward. He'll get time on the penalty kill most likely. He's just kind of really exploded on the scene, if you will, after getting traded out. Or was he traded or expansion draft to
Expansion
Seattle?
draft.
Was it expansion? Well, it's like he came in much like the guys coming to Vegas with a chip on his shoulder and something to prove. And I feel like he's been a really reliable player since making that move and going to a stout Rangers team. It's just like, yeah, that makes sense. That's a good move.
So what we're going to end the night with is we already talked about the people who are off the board, and I picked a few people that are still available that could help the Red Wings. Maybe not to the extent, and maybe to the extent of like a Noah Hanifin or Jake Gensel's still out there. He's not on my list, but I want to start with a couple that the Red Wings have kind of been named in the same breath as. And we're going to start with Jacob Chychrun. Jacob Chychrun is one that I worry about his knees, but on a bad Ottawa team, he's got a 49 WAR, a 72 offense, a 28 defense, but a finishing of 97. So he's an offensive defenseman. He doesn't slouch defensively. He's just not the best defensively. But he gives you another high end option. What you're looking for is a top 4 defenseman, and he's an option out there that I think could do it for you.
Here's my question: is he better defensively than Shayne Gostisbehere?
Yeah, especially
Send
Shayne
it.
Gostisbehere lately.
Send it. He's more sound offensively. And what I mean by that is, while Ghost has been, where's he at in the points right now on the team? Of course, the one thing I don't have up is our actual team stats as I'm trying to make a point. Currently, Ghost sits at 5th in scoring on this team. With Chychrun, I think he's got 32, 33 points on the year, even with missing some time. He slots in at he'd be 6th on the team in scoring at that point. But to me, that's also with a team that has struggled to score in Ottawa and consistently do it to that point. He slots in easily on your power play. He slots in easily on in your top 4. And you can rely on him. You can actually move him anywhere in your defensive lineup because he's out there playing still 23 minutes a night, if I remember right, 22, 23 minutes a night. So you can put Chychrun in all these different situations where on a typical day, you're not feeling comfortable doing that with Shayne Gostisbehere. And also to boot, Chychrun's 6'2", 220.
Yeah, 59 games played, 9 goals, 22 assists for 31 points for Chychrun.
Also to boot, you'd piss off a lot of Ottawa Senators fans.
Oh, that'd be the icing on the cake.
And I think we're all here for that.
Sure, but I don't want to give them more of our prospect pool and or picks. So that's kind
But
of
with what they sent away for Tarasenko, or what they sent Tarasenko away for, it doesn't seem like you'd have to give up that much.
Fair. If it's if you're giving me a trade like Tarasenko for a Jake Chychrun, why haven't you hit send yet? Throwing an extra pick in there just for shits and giggles.
Sure, or a prospect, whatever. We're feeling
Either one.
spicy.
Johnny Burgers.
Sure. Well, I think it would start with Berggren. Ottawa's been listed as one of the teams interested in Berggren. But if you could put a package together with Berggren and a couple picks and get Chychrun just because, it's Ottawa, then I think that's a trigger you pull twice a day, every day of the week.
Yeah, absolutely.
Give me Batherson too.
Yeah, just have them bring a player back. If we go to the other side of the ice, Calgary's Rasmus Andersson has been mentioned as another option since Hanifin is now gone. Andersson is a right shot. He's a righty. Yeah. He could slot in under Mo on that second pair. He has an 82 projected WAR, a 79 offense, a 28 defense. Fantastic on the power play, good on the penalty kill, a lot of primary assists. But he's also a big guy. I mean, he's 6'1", 202 pounds, and he has 7 goals, 25 assists, 32 points in 57 games played this season so far. But I think he might provide a little bit more defensive upside than a Chychrun, and he's a righty. So then you don't have to force Ben Sherratt to the right. You don't have to move a guy over on his offhand to just not have the optimal chances go your way. So Rasmus Andersson, I think, is a good, I just said his name really weird, but Rasmus Andersson, I think, would be a solid pickup if Calgary is just trying to get rid of everything.
Which I think right now, if you're looking at the pieces, he solidifies your top 4. And I think that's important because honestly, if Jeff Petry was seeing third pairing minutes instead of top 4 minutes, I'd probably be a much happier person. Because that's where he can actually probably be effective. We've seen that with Olli Maatta this season, where his minutes have been brought back a little bit. We even saw him scratched early in the season, which was a bit frustrating to me. But he's done well with the time he's been given. That's where, if you have a Sanderson, or you got me saying Sanderson now, Rasmus Andersson, he fits into your top 4. You can probably float him between your top pair, second pair if you need to, and match him up with guys that are going to be difficult matchups. And also, if you can make it work, can you send off a Jeff Petry? I doubt it. He's probably not going to go anywhere and improve anything. But do you get rid of a Justin Holl in this deal? I think that could be possible because Andersson does have term left.
I think the term is what does it, Ryan. $4.55 million for the next 2 seasons. So that's a guy you could fit, and you've got him through 2025, 26 at that point.
And he'd be playing. That's the difference. Justin Holl is not playing. He is chilling out up in the gondola or suite, wherever it is that the players sit at, not doing anything, which to me is frustrating because I think defensively he hasn't been actually awful. He's appeared in only 35 games, has 5 points, all of them assists. It's frustrating looking at it on the surface because he's making what $3 million a year to literally do nothing, which in the grand scheme of things isn't awful because they're not in a salary cap bind. However, moving forward, that becomes a black hole. And it's not a contract that you want to look at and be like, we should just buy him out because now you're paying him for 6 years instead of three. So the best case scenario is he is shipped out in any pending deals, whether it's at this deadline or coming up at the draft or over the summer.
Yeah, I love the Rasmus Anderson possibility. I think that there's almost zero chance that that happens, and the only reason I say that is because I think Calgary is going into a new building either next year or the year after. I can't remember, and they're gonna have to put a formidable product on the ice, and build it around a guy like Rasmus Anderson. They have some pretty decent players on up front, and Kadri and Huberdeau, but some of those guys are getting a little bit older too. But the point is I think Calgary isn't looking to be, a bottom feeder for 10 years. I think they're looking to try to build it smartly going forward, but also have a stalwart back on defense. And I think Rasmus Anderson is that. Now, if you're telling me that the Wings could give up a first round pick and Johnny Bergers and maybe something small as well, and they have Rasmus Anderson for 2 more years and then potentially beyond that, I'm in. I would do it, but I just don't think Calgary would do it.
Let's look at a forward now. We're going to look at the St. Louis Blues, one of Stevie's favorite trading partners in Pavel Buchnevich.
Speaking of 1-for-1,
He is a piece that absolutely would solidify our top six. You want a top six guy? He plays now. His war card has him listed as playing left, right, or center. He's 28 years old. He has a projected WAR of 94 with an EV offensive 92 and EV defensive 88. He's good on the PK, amazing finishing numbers. He's in the 99th percentile for competition, which is really good. And he's signed for one more season at 5.8 million. So you've got him at a phenomenal contract right there for at least one more season. In 60 games played, he has 24 goals, 24 assists for 48 points. He's a positive player. If you're looking for a guy so you don't have to keep moving Piranha and Rasmussen up into your top six, Buchnevich slots directly on your second line. And then you've got a second line of Buchnevich, Compher, Raymond eventually when Larkin comes back. And that's what you need. You need a dude who's going to go out there. He's 6'1", 196. So he's not small and light. He's got some heft to him and he can put the puck in the net. And you're looking to solidify that top six. He's absolutely the dude who's going to do it.
and guess what? He's younger. He is about to turn
28.
20.
He's under 30.
He's about to be 29 in April, but he is a big-bodied power forward with an incredible shot. And since coming to St. Louis, has done nothing but score goals and get assists. He's a 50-50 player right now, as you just mentioned, with 48 and 60. But I think in his time with St. Louis,
Well, the past two seasons, he was over a point per game.
yeah, since coming to St. Louis, he's got 191 points in 196 games.
And that team stinks.
Yeah. So if you're saying that you're going to add that to this current roster and top six, I'm doing that. I would actually prefer this deal over Gensel, to be quite honest with you, because there's a lot more
Yeah.
balance there. And you know that he can play at a high level. I'm not saying that Gensel can't. I still think to get Buchnevich away from St. Louis, it's going to still cost something. But I think long term, you're not looking at as much of an impact potentially with salary cap ramifications in terms of what you may have to give him compared to Gensel, who's eclipsed that 40 goal mark, where you've got Booch, who's hit 30 goals one time. Looks like he might hit it again this season, but you can expect 20 to 30 goals from him. And I think that does bring that cost down a little bit because you're not expecting him to play top line minutes. Gensel's going to have that expectation of, hey, you're going to go out there, you're playing on my top line, you're going to be on the top power play. That's not a bad thing, but with that comes a lot of money. And I don't know if that's in to also acquire that is going to require quite a bit of capital. So that one scares me a little bit more, but Booch I would absolutely do.
What you need to give, and it's what you need to give, I think, too, to St. Louis, is you need to give them young pieces that are cheap. So you
Yeah.
need to give them a defenseman to replace someone like a Marco Scandella who's coming off next season, who's going to be cheap. So you could give them an Albert Johansson, who's very young, very cost controlled, who's NHL ready. You could give them a Berggren who needs a contract, but you could sign him for probably under $2 million for a few seasons. And you're replacing a guy like maybe you're replacing a Kasperi Kapanen, maybe you're replacing I don't know, a lot of their guys are signed for a really long time, which sucks, but you're replacing a Buchnevich with a Berggren who also has an upside, but is much younger. So, and you give him a pick. So you could give him a couple prospects that are NHL ready and a pick, and I think it gets that deal done.
Give him a first round pick.
Sure. I mean, our first round pick is going to be probably in the late, like early 20s.
Fair. My thing about the Buchnevich deal is it solidifies your top six, not just for this year, but also for next year. You know, assuming you resign Patrick Kane, which I don't see why you wouldn't. But it also, you'll have him again for another playoff run next year, as long as, you know, obviously the wheels don't fall off this year. So I don't see where there's a lose situation here. You have a glut of young defensemen in Grand Rapids that you're not all of them are going to be able to play in the NHL for the Detroit Red Wings. It's just not going to be a possibility, especially with Mo Seider already, and especially with Jake Wallman and our defense here. So you're going to have to start to trade some of that away to acquire talent for offense or for defense, whichever you know the biggest need is. And in my opinion, I still think that you could add a Buchnevich and then you could add I don't know, a seventh defenseman and potentially get rid of Justin Holl at the same time. Is that a possibility? So like that's where I'm at.
Why would you add a bottom pairing defenseman at this point though?
I don't mean like a bottom pairing. I mean like a seventh defenseman that we would bring in. I'm sorry, I phrased that wrong. A second pair defenseman, probably not a third pair defenseman because you already have that in Hall and Petry and
We've got several of them.
Yeah.
We don't need
Yeah.
another one. Like if you're not making an impactful move, and it's still even that point right there on the defenseman piece, I think you have to move out of Hall because he's not playing. He is literally just costing you money at this point. But I go back to what Lalone said, and it's maybe they aren't making that impactful trade that the fans all want to see and are going to clamor for. Everyone's going to ooh and ah over these things, but at the same time, like what you just said, internally, look what they have. Detroit has 3 guys currently sitting in Grand Rapids that could come up potentially and be impactful in Detroit. Albert Johansson, William Wallinder, Simon Edvinsson.
They need to make a trade to appease the players, I think.
Appease the
I'm
who?
not saying they need to make something major, but they need to do something to
Then to
show
hold
that
to
club.
Toronto.
Oh, for Justin Holl.
No, he's just saying to instill confidence in the locker room that they're trying to push.
You know what inspires confidence in the locker room? Not getting rid of
Push it.
dudes
Yeah.
and continuing on. Because look what we go back a year ago, Tyler. Look what those trades did to this team, especially Larkin.
They made Dylan Larkin cry.
Yeah. Was it mildly embarrassing to watch, but also heartfelt? Yes. But now you look at what they've done, which is nothing to this point, and it's showing that there's faith in what has been put together and what's on the ice. Now, it's on the players, but to your point, if they do make a trade and it's no one that's currently on this roster that's going outbound, and it's a Justin Holl, for instance, I'm going to keep referencing him at this point, to make this roster better, you're still going to hurt feelings because someone has to come out. So who's it going to be at that point? If it's Jeff Petry, no one's feelings is getting hurt, in my opinion, at that point, because now your team just got better. But something's got to give. I just don't know if it's going to be this year.
So the last guy I want to talk about is Tyler Toffoli. He's another one that's kind of been, as of today, named in the same breath as the Detroit Red Wings. He is on his last year of a $4.25 million deal. He has a projected WAR of 86 with an EV offense of 85, a defense of 43, but he's got good power play numbers at 88%, good goals percentage at 82. His competition, he's playing kind of down. He's 71% on the competition, so he's playing some easier matchups. But again, he's a right wing. You could have to shift him to another side to the left to play on the second line. But he's another guy at 31 years old that could come in and provide some offense and stability to that top six. I would absolutely take Buchnevich above Tyler Toffoli, but Tyler Toffoli I think is a good backup option in case you really have nothing left to do. And you ship out some guys, you're going to get some picks for those guys too. Maybe you trade picks you get in return for other players, and you don't have to trade your own. But Toffoli for a Devils team who is, for all intents and purposes, pretty close to out of the playoffs. I think they had their percentage at like 17% or something recently. Chance of making the playoffs. They fired Lindy Ruff, who they just signed at the beginning of the season. Things are kind of falling apart there. Toffoli could be had, but you're going to have to extend him or you're going to take him as a rental. I know Yzerman doesn't really want to take rentals at this stage in the rebuild.
No, that's where everyone else that we've mentioned makes a little bit more sense because of that couple year age gap. And it also would raise the question of, if are you bringing back a Perron, which has been talked about? Are you going to bring back a Kane, which has been talked about? But both these guys are north of 35 years old. So now are you going to want to add another 30-plus-year-old player to the mix to try to maintain that stability? Now, if you can get him at a cheaper cost, that'd be great. But I doubt it, because he's got 44 points on the season on a team that's been struggling. Because now you insert him into your middle six. Now you've got him inserted onto your power play. And he is definitely going to be impactful, and he's going to improve in all aspects of that. If the cost is lower, sure, but I don't know what that means per se, because this is just a weird market anymore, and with the cap, who knows what's going to happen. I mean, I wouldn't be mad if it's a guy that you get re-sign in the offseason to a 2 or 3 year deal.
I feel if you're Toffoli, you want more than that, though, going forward. This is your chance at a decent contract after you've kind of played your ass off for the past 2 seasons.
Yeah. I mean, he's worth, well, let's see. He had a three and a quarter, 4.6 million, and this current one is a 4.25. So he actually went down on money from his last contract. So you probably could get him around the same boat, which now, okay, trade Robbie Fabry. You've got Tyler Toffoli. I'll eat that contract at 4 million
I'll
again.
take that.
Yeah, I think though, still at the end of the day, I might pay a little bit more to get someone like a Buchnevich, because actually give Fabry back to the Blues in a Buchnevich deal. Here's your stuff back.
Same age.
I think that is
Actually,
it's
no.
a better move because of the length of his contract remaining, and his underlying stats are better on a worse team than the Devils, who are a really good team, a really good top end team. When you're playing with someone like Jack Hughes, you're going to put up a little bit more, I think, than when you're playing on a team like the Blues.
I think the Buchnevich one, to, again, like I said, the big body is what sells me, and what you've seen Yzerman trying to kind of go towards a little bit. That's where I think maybe I'm not going to say it's likely, but it makes not re-signing or extending David Perron easier, because you've got a similar build player that could probably play a very similar role, but score a hell of a lot more.
All right, Tyler, I'm going to let you take it out. I want you to give your thoughts on it and then your final thoughts. Then we'll move to Ryan and we'll close this one out.
Yeah, Toffoli is an interesting one. I mean, he's a little bit older. He's gonna command probably obviously lower than what Buchnevich is gonna get. If Buchnevich is traded, but I think it just depends on who's going out. Is it someone from the roster? Is New Jersey gonna take Justin Holl? I doubt it. But I wouldn't trade the first round pick for Toffoli. I can tell you that right now. Maybe a second or a third, maybe. I could see that, or a second and a third. I would do that. But I guess you really got to tell me what it is that I'm giving up to acquire Tyler Toffoli, because Toffoli is a tremendous player. He can put the puck in the back of the net, and with a team that already puts the puck in the back of the net a lot, I'd be very interested to see what it would look like with Toffoli in the fold. But again, it depends on what you're giving up. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I do think Yzerman is active. I do think that they make something happen. I'm not saying that it's going to be something major. But to me, Toffoli would be a good fit. Any of these guys that we've talked about outside of Gensel would be a good fit because I just think Gensel is just, I don't think he's coming to Detroit. I think he's going to a Stanley Cup contender. But we'll see. I've been wrong before. Final thoughts. This last stretch is going to be interesting. They're right in it. Obviously, being without Dylan Larkin is tough, but you know what? This team, I think, is bigger than just one player on this team. I think the sum of this team's parts is bigger than just the individual, and I think that's what gets this team through this bump in the road without Larkin. Other than that, go Wings, beat the Avs, fuck Colorado, and you can follow me on Twitter at SealDog91.
Final thoughts for me. It's going to be a wild next 24 to 48 hours, I feel like. Maybe not for Detroit. And if it's not for Detroit, I'm not going to be that upset because there's a lot of good things that can happen with this team in the near future. And honestly, this is the offseason where you want to see Yzerman probably go a little bit crazy. Plus, they still have to sign a few young players if you guys haven't forgotten. But outside of that, I mean, just win, get points. This is a big road 4-game trip coming up. Without Larkin, there's gonna be a taller task on a few guys, and I really hope to see them step up and make an impact. But outside of that, go buy the shirts at Vintage Detroit. They're freaking awesome. Already Ryan 33.
Yeah, that was going to be my final thoughts. Go to vintagedetroit.com, check out our collab with them, and then check out, like I mentioned earlier, Kiwi Clothes launch, KIWICLO.com on the 8th for their launch of their stuff that's going to benefit the Vladimir Konstantinov Special Needs Trust and the Boys and Girls Club of Detroit. We'd like to thank the Hockey Podcast Network for hosting us and spreading us around. You can find us at Grindline Pod on all social networks. You can go sub to our YouTube. Go to youtube.com and search the Grindline, and you will find all of our stuff. I will be posting another thing probably Friday night about the trade deadline, doing a little bit of wrap up, depending on what happens between now and then. But yeah, that's going to do it for us tonight. So for Ryan and Tyler, I am Greg. You stay classy, Hockey Town.